As Jessica stepped out of the motel room, the sun slipped beneath the city's edge, washing the sky in a muted amber glow. She drew her coat closer to her body, weighed down by a thick mix of remorse and bone-deep fatigue. Her plan had seemed straightforward. Disappear from her husband, David, for a few hours under the excuse of a work obligation, then be home again before dinner. But the hours had stretched far beyond what she'd expected, and now all she wanted was to return, quietly without attracting notice. When she reached the motel parking lot, her breath caught. Her car wasn't there. A cold wave of panic rushed through her. She searched the lot again, desperately, hoping she'd misremembered where she'd parked. After several minutes, reality struck like a lightning bolt. The car was gone. Her fingers shook as she called the police to report the theft, her voice carefully crafted to sound calm, composed, the voice of an unsuspecting victim. Yet beneath that practiced tone, a troubling thought whispered that fate was tightening its grip far sooner than she'd expected. She hailed a cab and slid into the back seat, wrapped in silence as her mind looped through the day's lies, the false story she'd given David, the fabricated meeting, the odd smiles, the message she'd sent, "Don't wait up, I'll be late." Each deception pressed on her like a stack of stones. What unsettled her most was imagining David's reaction to her arriving home without her car. He noticed everything, the smallest inconsistencies, and recently he'd grown distant, more closed off than she'd ever seen him. When Jessica finally reached the house, it stood swallowed by darkness, the porch, lights off. That alone felt wrong. David always left them on when he knew she'd be late. She unlocked the door and stepped into a cold, unnervingly silent home. "David?" she called softly, placing her purse on the kitchen counter. No reply. As she walked down the hallway, a slow, creeping dread settled into her chest. The framed photos that once lined the walls were missing. The wedding portrait by the staircase, gone. Her pulse raced as she hurried through the house, opening drawers and closets. David's clothes, his watch, even the worn leather jacket he rarely touched, all gone. The realization hit her all at once. He had left. On the dining table rested an envelope with her name written on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it, finding her car key and a letter inside. She sank into a chair, nausea twisting her stomach, yet she couldn't stop herself from reading. The letter began, "Jessica, I know everything. The motel, the other man, the lies you thought were so well hidden. You weren't as careful as you believed. The GPS in your car told me exactly where you were today. I had it towed while you were still in that room. This is my goodbye." Tears blurred her vision as she read on. David's handwriting was steady, almost unnervingly calm. "I didn't want drama. I only needed you to understand that I deserved the truth. Your car is at your mother's place in Tucson. Pick it up when you're ready to be honest with her or with yourself." The letter slipped from her fingers as she stared through tears. The pain wasn't only from being exposed. It was the quiet certainty in his words. He hadn't shouted or broken anything. He'd simply walked away, leaving her alone with the consequences of her choices. She rushed to the bedroom, clinging to a fragile hope that he might still be there. But the room felt hollow. The closet door hung open, his side nearly empty. On his pillow lay his wedding ring, set down carefully like a final act of mercy. Jessica collapsed to her knees, gripping the ring as her sobs echoed through the stillness. For the first time, she understood that losing her car meant nothing compared to losing the one person who had loved her in spite of her imperfections. The guilt she'd buried for so long surged to the surface, suffocating her with a truth she could no longer avoid. She drifted into the living room, where the emptiness of the house felt almost physical. The warmth, the laughter, the sense of home, all of it was gone. Every room held a memory. Every shadow seemed to carry David's silent judgment. Later that night, she sat by the window, the letter clenched in her hands, reading it again and again. There was no anger in it, only an unmistakable finality. He had released himself from her betrayal, and that freedom was a punishment she would carry forever. Outside, life continued as usual, but Jessica remained trapped in that moment, haunted by her choices. The man she believed she could fool had proven stronger than she'd ever known. Her car might be waiting at her mother's house, but her peace, her marriage, and her future were lost beyond recovery. Sitting alone in the darkened quiet, she finally realized that the greatest loss was never material. It was the unbearable weight of her own actions, a truth she could no longer escape.